Hey guys, welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Andre Seegers, and this time we're joined by Derek Binner and Ash Paulson to discuss everything about the DLC Pack 1 coming to Zelda Breath of the Wild this summer. So let's get started. Alright guys, we've known about this DLC pack coming for a little while now, and Nintendo finally gave us all the details instead of the incredibly vague details from before. So basically the way they broke it down is there's really 5 or 6 categories, if you will, that encompass this DLC. So I figured we'd just go through these one by one real quick and talk about our thoughts about each of them individually, as well as what we think about it in general at the end. So first up, we have the new Trial of the Sword. I'm just going to read the description here. When you get to a certain sacred location, you can take on the new Trial of the Sword challenge. Face an onslaught of enemies, one wave after another. Link starts a challenge without any equipment or weapons. When all the enemies in a room are defeated, Link proceeds to the next one. Clear all the trials, which are about 45 rooms in total, and the true power of the Master Sword awakens. So guys, thoughts?
I mean, it's a cool take on the idea, because we knew that this room after room thing was going to be coming, and we kind of got that experience with Twilight Princess HD. This gives us a better idea. You know, it sort of gave us an idea of what to expect, and it is kind of like that, except for one crucial detail, and that's that Link starts out completely weaponless, clothless, everything. It's a repeat of the Eventide Island challenge, which people really liked. So I think just adding that extra level of difficulty, like no matter what level you're at, how many hearts you have, this could prove a challenge, and I think it definitely makes it a little bit more interesting, rather than just taking your equipment and beating your way through horde after horde of enemies. You're actually gathering yourself up and trying to get stronger as you go through, which just increases the challenge and keeps it on sort of a balanced arc where you're not overpowered at the beginning and struggling and watching the difficulty just slowly get harder. Now it's sort of a little bit more even keel, maybe, hopefully.
I could see this being challenging no matter what level you're at, though naturally, of course, having more hearts will still help. I actually agree with everything you said, Derek, although I do want to add one more other detail that's important over and above whatever it was called in Twilight Princess HD, I think the Cave of Trials or whatever, is the fact that there seems to be an actual reward this time, or at least a reward you would actually want. And to me, what that makes it sound like is that we'll have a Master Sword that actually does not lose its power, or whatever it says in the game, that it actually stays at a 60 attack power the entire time you're using it. And to me, that's pretty cool.
Do you think that's what it is, for sure?
I think, well, for that's if I was asked to guess what it was, that's what my guess would be. I mean, you know, a powered up, it unlocks the Master Sword's true potential. I mean, we already know the Master Sword can shoot beams of light when Link's health is full. And I feel like really the main thing that makes the Master Sword not so great to use is the fact that it does kind of run out of power very quickly.
That's not really a Master Sword.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really, at least it would be nice if it was like a base 30 attack power when it was, you know, not working, quote unquote. But it goes to 0 and you can't even use it.
Yeah, so this is basically a Cave of Trials, as you guys said. I mean, Cave of Trials never really did much for me. And while this one looks a little bit cooler going off its shots on the Japanese page, I still really can't care about it. It's like, whatever. I mean, part of the problem with this DLC, I think, and now we're kind of skipping ahead, I think, because I'm getting my general thoughts more now, is who cares if you beat the game? Like, I don't care. I don't need a more powerful sword now. I mean, I've done this. That's my issue with that. So, I mean, this would be more appealing. Like, if you're just now starting, I could see that perhaps being more interesting, but I never ran out of weapons before. That was one of the complaints with the game. I was never at a shortage of weapons. Powering up the Master Sword permanently doesn't really change that much to me. And I don't know, maybe it will be fun. I mean, a lot of people did like that island. I thought it was interesting because it was on an island, not necessarily in a room. So, yeah, right. I mean, I can't say this by itself is doing anything for me.
Yeah, I mean, I find it to be at least somewhat more thematically interesting than the Cave of Trials in Twilight Princess HD.
But that
said, though, that wasn't interesting at all. And so I would say, like, if my level of interest in that was like a 3, then my level of interest in this would be like a 5 or a 6. Like, it's not like I'm super excited about it.
Right.
But I at least I like that they're making somewhat of an effort to make it a little more interesting than what we got in Twilight Princess HD.
Okay.
Yeah, that's sort of what I can appreciate, and I agree with Ash about what the reward's likely going to be. I wasn't even thinking it was going to never break. I thought it was just going to stay at a power level of 60, and maybe increase the power level in Hyrule Castle whenever you go there. But I mean, I could see either way, having it worked like that, and that seems like a pretty decent reward. Though you are correct, Andre. The problem with this mode is that if you've already beaten the game, it's less appealing. Like I've already found all the shrines. I've found enough Korok seeds to increase my weapon slots to the max. I've beaten the game, so there's not much of a reason to it. However, if I was starting a new game and certainly playing on hard mode, then I'd be a little bit more intrigued and definitely interested in this. Like, that would be quite the challenge.
Well, that is a good point, and we'll get to that soon enough. For now, we're moving on to the second addition to the game, being the Hero's Path mode, which is basically a feature that allows you to see the path Link has taken that you've walked yourself in the world on the map for the past 200 hours. So it's not a huge feature, but it does show like which areas of the world you've explored and which you haven't. So that is useful for I could see that being useful for exploring, seeing as how that is a massive world, and the game doesn't do that great of a job right now telling you where you've been and where you haven't.
I really like this idea. One of the things I constantly thought as I was going through, and the reason I played the way I did, was I went from tower to tower and then tried to scour as much of the area that I opened up as I could and tried to remember where I've been so I wouldn't miss anything, because I noticed as I got more towers unlocked, the map blended itself together and I could had a harder time telling the different lands apart. And I was like, oh, was I there? Did I go? And I just had to sort of give up on it after a certain point and just sort of like, close enough. This is like, kept thinking, I was like, man, I wish I could know where I've been. That way I could actually go there. But I was always thinking that this map upgrade was going to be a way to help find the Korok seeds. And to have it be this is a delight to me. It's just cool to see them come up with this idea, and I could see it being, again, really useful, even if you've already beaten the game. If you're trying to get 100% completion, this will help a lot. If you're starting out, it'll still help quite a bit. So this is definitely a useful upgrade in my opinion.
Yeah, I actually think this is really cool. I think just from a novelty standpoint, I mean, I think there's obvious utility there if you're just starting a new game, or you're starting another new game, let's say, or, whatever, you're still in the middle of your playthrough. But even if you've already beaten the game, like both of you have, and I'm just about to, yes, I haven't beaten it yet, but I'm close, I still like the idea of being able to see, where I did go, and kind of how long I did spend in each area. I mean, of course, that's something that's only kind of cool the first time, and I totally recognize that, but I think this is cool functionality because it's unexpected. Obviously, yes, you're going to get less use out of it if you've already beaten the game, like a lot of the content in this first DLC pack, and that's just kind of unavoidable. But I like the idea that they're even doing this at all. And I actually also think it's cool that I imagine the way the game was made, that it's already had to have been tracking what you've already done, even before they announced this feature. So I think it's kind of cool. Well, yeah, one would hope, right? Yeah. Assuming that's the case, I think it's kind of cool that they were forward-thinking in that sense. So I think this is really cool, even though its utility is limited if you've already finished the game. Or you're not going for 100%. Like Derek said, though, if you are going for 100%, that plus the other thing we're going to talk about later in this update will help you find all the Korok seeds.
I'm looking forward to using this feature to see how much more time I spent on the east side of the world versus the west, where there's literally like nothing to do. I think it's cool. I think it's a good feature, for sure. The big question is it retroactive, and I'm hoping it is. I'm hoping it doesn't just start tracking it once you download the update, but that they've been doing it, this whole time.
I feel like that wouldn't work.
Not really any less than any of these other things.
That's true, I guess. I guess it's weird though that they specify from the previous 200 hours of gameplay. I think that all that's telling us that there's a cap. Like, it's not indefinite. Yeah, I guess so. Okay. Yeah. I guess I assume it's retroactive, but I guess there's a chance it might not be.
I would think it is, because I would imagine they were probably using similar tools for playtesting, seeing how people are playing through this game. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I'm assuming that's retroactive. Either way, it's cool. So no matter what, it's a good addition. So let's go ahead and move on now to hard mode, and I'll read the description here. In hard mode, enemies gradually regain health, so take them out as quickly as possible. All enemies are also powered up by one level. For example, red bogoblins in normal mode are now blue bogoblins. Enemies can also have a higher maximum level than they would in normal mode. Look up, and you may also find enemies and treasure chests in the sky. And on the Japanese side, you can actually see pictures of those enemies on these little platforms floating around, which I actually like that part. That part is cool. Because before, flying was a get-out-of-jail-free card. Like, if you're in the air, you're pretty much invincible. This seems like that might change that a little bit.
That is probably the only part of this hard mode thing that I think sounds kind of cool. Otherwise, this is actually the part of the whole DLC pack that I think is the most underwhelming. I mean, yeah, a new difficulty it could be argued is underwhelming anyway, but really they just scaled, the enemy mobs up by one level and gave them a little more life, and they might be higher. I just feel like there's more they could have done. Like, maybe introduce like a fullness gauge for Link or something, so you can't just eat 25 apples when you're hurting, like, so you actually have do a hunger meter, or at least a fullness meter, so time has to pass before Link can eat more or something. I just feel like there are other more creative ways they could have made the game harder.
That is a really interesting thought. And now they mention it, I kind of agree. Like, I was viewing it as just a hard mode, and that's what most hard modes are. They just scale up the damage enemies inflict and how much health and how much damage they themselves can take. So in that sense, I'm like, whatever. But now that I hear your ideas, I agree. Like, it's more fun when they do actually change how the game plays, resulting in a different experience. And they do touch on that a little bit with the floating platforms. But yeah, I kind of agree. Like, the scaling up the enemy difficulty really isn't going to change that much, I feel like, just because, I mean, you can basically emulate that now just by going through the game with fewer hearts.
Right, I mean, all it really does is delay the point at which Link becomes stronger than everything else in the game. That's point. Really kind of, that it really just pushes that tipping point back further.
Right.
Like, I'm interested in seeing what the new hardest level Lionels are like how hard those might be. That could be cool.
That's true.
That would be quite the challenge, or seeing how that would go. But you guys are right. It is basically just a power scale, and everybody realized that the hard mode would probably be the least interesting part of this DLC from the beginning. I'm curious whether or not you have to start a brand new game, or you can just, like, switch it on and just experience at least a little bit of the hard mode.
Oh, while you're mid-game, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I wonder.
Yeah, because the floating platforms as chess kind of throws it off, I think, and enemies.
Yeah, I feel like it would have to be the kind of thing where you start a new game in either difficulty. I don't know if I see this being the kind of thing where you can switch mid-game.
Yeah. I would probably prefer that. Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess I like the idea they can downscale a game if it's too hard for you. But, yeah, I mean, Zelda's always been, you've never been able to toggle at mid-game, so I'm guessing this is going to be the case here, too.
Well, the reason I wonder if they'll allow you to do it mid-game is there's only one save file. You have to make a whole entirely new profile.
That's true.
In order to have this hard mode. So, to me, it makes less sense to, like, force a person to completely start over.
Good point, actually. That's a really good point.
Maybe it'll be something that you set when you're choosing your save file. Maybe it'll be something.
Oh, from the get-go?
You set, or from the get-go each time, or maybe not each time. You just go to the options menu and you choose either normal or hard, and then, whatever you have it set to, that's what all your save files will load as while you're playing that session. Then you quit out and you can change and then reload your file.
I could totally see it happening, like, every time you die. It's like, hey, do you want to knock it down to normal? Like, is it too hard for you? Do you want to...
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah, who knows? I mean, there's any number of ways I could do it, so... Do you guys think you will replay the game in hard mode based on this, or...
It's going to be a while till I replay Zelda.
Yeah.
I really like the game, but, there's a lot of other stuff to play, and I like the experience, but, there's other fish in the sea. I gotta check those out, too.
No, I mean, I haven't even finished my first playthrough. I don't have time to play this again. It has nothing to do with how interesting hard mode is or isn't, but I will have time to do the new story content when that comes out in DLC Pack 2. But are you kidding me? Replaying Breath of the Wild when I've already spent 130 hours on it? No way.
Right.
No friggin' way.
Yeah. I am looking forward to videos of people hijacking those those flying machines.
Now that's a good one. Like, can you fly those around if you use your Deku Leaf? Can you, like, move those platforms around?
Oh, I'm sure
I bet you can.
Because that would be fun, actually.
Because that's basically what people were doing, on their own, and these just seem like permanent options. And you can even mess with them, like, oh, those guys are shooting at me. Oh, I'm just gonna pop their balloons,
Yeah.
Or even just let go of the, like when you're gliding like that, let go, do your quick aim thing where you slow down time, shoot the balloons, continue on your way.
What if there are Lionels flying around on those platforms?
Oh my god,
that would be amazing. Especially when they shoot the lightning arrows into the sky or whatever.
Oh my god. That would be so
awesome.
good. Because actually, one thing I was thinking about, I'm a little bit disappointed by this, is, I mean, I'm hoping they didn't list every detail here that they're changing. Because if it's just a standard enemy, or the same enemies in the same places, that doesn't seem that interesting. Like, I feel like this is a good opportunity to switch up some of the enemy locations. Like, what if you have Lionels running around in Hyrule Field alongside the Guardians now, for instance? That'd be...
right.
Just, stuff like that to change it up. I mean, right now, based on the description they're providing, they're not giving me enough reason to want to replay this game.
Yeah, I mean, although, to be fair, I don't know if there's anything they can do short of, like, just giving me extra hours in the day to make me want to replay this game. Just because I literally don't have time. It's not a lack of desire. I don't seriously know what they could even do to make me want to replay it. Like, you know, I mean, I'm already going to play the new story content in DLC Pack 2, but really, I feel like there's not a whole lot they could do. If that's the metric we're using,
right.
I'm not sure what they could do, you know?
Moving on, we have the Travel Medallion. According to the description, somewhere in the world there's a chest with a Travel Medallion inside. When you use this, you can register your current location as a fast travel point on the map. You can only register one location using the Travel Medallion. So there really isn't much to say about this one. Like, I mean, that's good. Like, I don't see how anyone couldn't like that. That seems like a good feature.
It is. I mean, unfortunately, though, this is just another one of those things, like everything else in this pack, that falls into the realm of it's really a lot cooler if you're still playing the game, or if you're just starting the game.
In all of our cases, I imagine, we found a lot of those shrines, which, you know, there's generally one in almost every area you want to get to. There's very few places I'd want to throw down a Travel Medallion where I didn't find a shrine nearby.
Right.
There's a few places I can think of that I would like to have one a little bit closer to make it a little bit easier in some cases. Not a lot, but there are, like, it would be nice to have in those cases. The thing that sticks out to me the most about the Travel Medallion is that we have to find it. And I'm like, where the hell is this thing going to be?
Finding those freaking DLC chests with a Switch shirt alone was hard enough, even though afterward I realized they're all near a freaking shrine. Which I knew, I wish I had known that going in, because it makes it way easier. I spent like a freaking hour and a half looking for those stupid things. So not knowing where in the world this is going to be, that could be really tough. But hey, that's good for us. I'm gonna make a video on that ASAP. So
just take an hour and a half looking for it. Honestly, just go to the big ones. Go to the where the Master Sword is. Go to the Cave of Awakening, I think it is. Just all like major cities and anything you can think of for where this chest might show up.
Right. Exactly.
Well, and you know, this kind of goes into the next point a little bit, but I have a feeling that Nintendo will do something to message, you know, get a hint about the location of this thing in the game somewhere. I mean, with a game world as massive as this, they're going to message it in the game somehow, especially because of the next point, which I know you'll introduce properly, but they've said that there are going to be hints as to the whereabouts of treasure chests, including more armor from the DLC.
You stole my segue.
Well, no, you can still do it properly. I'm just saying that was illustrating my point. But
so I don't know if that's a point in your favor or not. And by in your favor, I mean in the idea they would provide a tip to it, because they didn't mention that in the previous section, right?
True.
But yeah, I kind of agree. Like, you would think they'd have to point it out, because you can't wander that world looking for a single chest with no idea of where to go. So yeah, I'm kind of with you. I feel like they will point you to it in some way. Perhaps through one of the scientist characters, for instance. But yeah, moving on, the final point here is that there is more armor coming to the game. So there are apparently going to be 8 treasure chests hitting around Hyrule containing armor themed after previous Legend of the Zelda titles. So these include Majora's Mask, Midna's helmet, Phantom armor, Tingle's outfit, which everyone's going to wear, I have a feeling, as well as a Korok mask. And this one actually has a function, because while you're wearing this mask, it'll shake whenever Link is near a hidden Korok location. And with there being 900 of those, that's, you know, a pretty good reason to wear that mask. So, yeah, thoughts on this new gear at all?
I mean, it's cool. It's also stuff you'd expect. Like, everybody wants to wear the Majora's Mask. That's going to be fun to wear. Midna, another obvious choice. I like that they actually referenced the Spirit Tracks with the Phantom armor.
That's nice.
Like, that's pretty cool, and it looks like pretty badass armor, all things considered.
And more importantly, I like that they reference Spirit Tracks and not Phantom Hourglass.
Yes.
Yes, that is an important point.
That is a good point. I do wonder, since we do have complete armor sets for both the Phantom armor and Tingle's outfit, what are the bonuses going to be once you have the Great Fairies increase that, like, level them up? It's like, I can imagine Tingle maybe providing more rupees or something to that effect. The Phantom armor, more defense? Mm-hmm. I'm not sure.
That's a good one.
Yeah, what I would like, and there may already be a set that does this in the game and I haven't found it, but I would like an armor set that increases your movement speed, like, permanently. Not just at night, like the Sheikah set, but, like, all the time. And I'm just saying it would be nice if the Phantom armor did that, but really, there's no reason it would. That wouldn't make sense at all.
That is not the... Like,
maybe if we got a mailman... Possibly.
Maybe if we got the mailman's outfit.
Yeah, You know, the ultimate middle finger for me would for that functionality to be married to the Tingle outfit, because I can't stand Tingle, but to have to wear that outfit to get a movement speed increase, they would do that.
I don't like Tingle much either, but there's something about this outfit that makes me just want to wear it all the time. Like, every video from here on out for Zelda is going to be wearing that outfit.
Oh, God.
As long as you mean only your Link and not you specifically wearing it.
Hey, don't judge.
You know, Link rocks it a lot better than Tingle, though. Let's be honest.
I agree with that. Yeah.
He's got a little bit better physique for it, that's for sure.
The other thing I'll say...
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, just really quick about the Korok mask. I love the pinwheel that Link is wearing in his hair. That's my favorite part about it. That's such a cool touch.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that. That's pretty awesome. So, I guess a Korok mask is in a way the biggest thing here, but also, it depends on your perspective. For me, I feel like it doesn't matter. Looking for the Korok, I never felt like I had a shortage of Korok seeds. It wasn't hard finding them. It's hard finding all of them. It's not hard finding them because they're literally everywhere, and once you start learning what to look for, they stand out pretty well. So I don't know how much this mask is really going to help unless you're just not that observant at all in the environment.
Well, I think this is probably more for people who want to 100% the game, and
is it though? Does it help that
people?
Does it help? I guess it does help, but I feel like, so when we were talking initially about what this map feature could be, I thought it might apply to the Korok seeds. Like, oh, here's an idea of where to find these Korok seeds. All this does is tell you if you're near one. It doesn't help you track them down if there's some in a region that you missed, for instance.
True, but there's also the fact that we have that new the
Hero's Path mode.
Yeah, exactly, Hero's Path. So that combined with the Korok mask could help you narrow down, especially when you can zoom in really close and see what Korok seeds you have found and go to the gaps and just start walking between gaps. And it's, that's tedious, true. That's for sure.
That's true. That's a good point.
Let's be honest, there's no real way to not make hunting down all 900 Korok seeds not tedious. I found 250 during my travels, and I felt pretty okay with that. I found almost a third of them on my own. I'm okay.
Yeah,
I stopped finding them once I realized it didn't matter.
They mattered, yeah. Well, I guess as much as you want inventory space, or at least weapon space.
You don't need it, though, but you're finding new weapons all the time.
Yeah, although I will say, I don't know, for my own experiences, having more weapon slots actually did improve my gameplay experience and actually open up my combat opportunities. So I actually, actively sought out Korok seeds. Although I do agree in that they weren't hard to find. When you needed one, there was usually not one too far off. I think I'm going to end up finding around 190 or 200, and I'm totally fine with that, because that's enough to max out your melee weapons.
Right. So, now that we've covered everything individually, how do you guys feel about this DLC in general? So we already know that you can't buy this pack individually. You have to buy it as part of Pack 2. They come together for $20 in total. What are your thoughts on that price point as it applies to this first DLC pack?
Well, looking at this, so we split that cost in half. It's essentially $10 for all these features, and I'm sure the trial mode will add probably an hour, maybe 2 of extra gameplay, which is good. And there's a lot of useful things in here, and just fun references as far as the costumes. I think, we may not personally use it, but I feel like there is $10 of value in this DLC.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Unfortunately, it depends so heavily on how much you're going to use it.
Oh yeah.
I totally understand why someone in our position, which is a lot of people, would not think this is worth $10 because they're not going to use the vast majority of it, and I get it. However, if I was a new Switch owner or a new Zelda owner and I decided to buy into the expansion pass and I was just starting my game and I found out this is coming, I think I'd feel this is worth my $10. Yeah.
So here's my problem. I feel like the majority of this should be part of an update. Like the new map feature or the Trial of the Sword. I feel like these shouldn't be DLC. These are changing the core game that you've already bought. They are adding to it, and I feel like they should be part of that game. Like when you go to the store and buy a game for $60, once you get home, you shouldn't then be faced with the question of, do I want to shell out another $20 to make this game, to enhance this game? Like, which version do I want to play? Like, I feel like I actually don't like that at all. I definitely don't like that. I don't mind, secondary stuff that much that doesn't really affect the gameplay at all. Like the costumes, for instance, if you want to buy those individually, fine, go nuts. I don't care. But this, I don't like the proposition of this at all.
I mean, that's a fair position to take, but you're essentially arguing against DLC in general. I mean,
no, I'm not at all.
I mean, okay, well, that's at least what it sounded like.
Because Nintendo hasn't done any DLC like this before that I can think of. Now, to be fair, I haven't played every Nintendo game with DLC, but the ones I have experienced, they've handled it in a way where the DLC didn't change the main game, like it didn't add story content or change the balance of that content. Instead, it's been, in my experience, supplementary up to this point, where it's either, like a new mode or something, or new stages, new weapons, costumes, things that add to the game in a modular sense that don't actually change or affect the core story mode on a grander scale.
I guess I see. I mean, I see what you're saying. I mean, I do, but
and that's
at the
a huge
same
difference.
Time,
yeah. We're also you're comparing multiplayer DLC, which is a lot easier to pull off and make seem valuable because you do add the extra stages and stuff like that to single player DLC.
That's my point, though.
And
like my argument more is DLC probably shouldn't exist for the most part for single player story based content.
The comparison I have as far as single player is like you said, the costumes, which makes sense in a way, just adding those extra things and charging a little bit or whatever. And also Fire Emblem, which adds new maps and new characters for you to purchase. And I'm not sure how much that translates to here because you're still buying more content so you can play more. And you kind of get that with the trial, but you also don't quite get that with the other options. That's what makes it so tricky. Is I could see some of this work as DLC, like the trial. I could see that as small DLC to add to it, and because it is more content that was not in the game before. The other ones, besides the armor, are functionalities that's getting added into the game, and that's what makes it a lot trickier, especially hard mode. I think that's the one.
Hard mode is actually the one I had the least problem with. I think that can exist as its own DLC thing, because that is basically a second version of the game. I'm fine with that. It's the rest of this stuff that influences how you can play your first time through after you've already shelled out $60 for this. Basically, if Hero's Path mode, for instance, is that important to the game, that should be part of an update. I feel like you shouldn't be buying this stuff, these like incremental upgrades for the UI, for instance.
But is it that important to the game? I mean, hearing about this doesn't make me upset that I've already played it. Like, I don't feel like I've missed out at all. But
you won't know for sure until you buy it.
Yeah, but I already bought it mainly for the story DLC, and I totally get that they folded the cost of the DLC Pack 1 into the cost of the one they knew everyone would buy if they had a choice, and that's classic, that's classic marketing, classic business. It's shady, but of course that's what they're going to do. But I don't have a problem with DLC for single-player games as long as it's priced and valued accordingly, and that's a decision that's up to each individual buyer. I don't know. I'm not upset that I didn't have access to Hero's Path.
It introduces confusion where there shouldn't be. There was clarity before. You bought Zelda, there was only one version of the game you can play. One besides being on the Wii U and Switch. It's the same game. And that's it. Like, you knew what you're getting yourself into. But now it's like, do I want to buy the DLC first? Do I want to give Nintendo $20 more of my money to enhance a game that might be better with this? Or is the game strong enough without it? Because then you might feel like you're missing out if you start the game without it, for instance. And also, there's also the fact that it doesn't make sense within this world for stuff to magically appear when you spend $20 outside of the game's world.
I mean, that stuff doesn't... I don't know, I guess that personally, that stuff doesn't really bother me, but I'm okay with at least giving the consumer a choice in the matter, like saying, "Hey, do the research, see if you think this will enhance your gameplay experience enough for $20."
Though, for like a
you don't have to.
Game?
Then don't. Then buy the game and play it and enjoy it. I mean, I feel like I had a perfectly... no one could possibly argue. It is impossible to argue that Breath of the Wild is...
You've already played through it, though. You didn't have to face that choice.
Right, but if I did, I wouldn't have complained about having to face that choice. I've played... The thing is, Zelda's hardly the first game to do this. PlayStation and Xbox games have been doing this for years.
That doesn't make it
right.
Like,
Nintendo's new to the game.
That doesn't change
anything. But I've had experiences with single-player DLC that I've enjoyed, which is why I know I don't mind it. Like, Like Mass Effect 2 Overlord, one of the best standalone DLC campaigns I have ever experienced, and I'm very glad I did.
We're on the same page here then in that regard. I'm fine with standalone DLC, that's why I was saying the hard mode's fine. It's when you start adding these incremental features that apparently are supposed to enhance the core story game, is when I start taking issue with it. The Hero's Path mode, that should be in the game straight up. You should not have to pay money for that.
I don't think that's our determination to make, though. I mean,
What are
if
you
that's
talking?
something...
I mean, of
Because
course
if
we
that's
can't
something that
determine
wasn't
that.
ready-
We can argue it one way or another. I mean, sure, if you just wanted to let Nintendo do whatever they wanted without arguing anything, then we're never having any discussions again.
Well, no, what I mean is... yes, obviously, but what I mean is... If that was not something they had thought of before the game was done, or if it was... I mean, I don't have a problem with them adding cool new functionality.
Let everyone have it.
But this stuff isn't made for free. I mean, the man-hours aren't free. Games aren't free to make.
The Splatoon had no problem adding free content. Do you think they should
Yeah,
charge
but that's
for that?
a different model. They only added multiplayer stuff.
It's a different model because they made it a different model. There's no reason they couldn't do the same thing here.
But it's not a single. But they weren't adding stuff to the single player story. If they had announced single player DLC for Splatoon, which I wanted them to do, I would have had no problem paying for that. None at all whatsoever. In fact, I do it right now.
In what sense are you talking? Like more levels?
Yeah, more levels or more more story or whatever.
I mean, that's
I would
different
do
than adding better controls or giving you a better UI or changing things how
Yeah,
the previous levels play.
But yeah, that's true. But I also don't feel as if the additions that are being made to the UI and stuff here in Zelda are so important that I can't play the game without them. They're just cool little things to have that you could pay for, but the game isn't worse without them, or it isn't.
It is worse.
Not fully featured.
I mean, if it's not worse, then why buy it?
That's your choice.
No, but
buy it or not.
No, I mean, I'm asking you, if it's not better, why would you buy it?
Because it's stuff. You could apply that to so many different things.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's true, right?
I mean, I guess, but I also don't think there shouldn't be a choice. I think more choices are better. I think the consumer should have the choice to spend a few bucks on...
I don't think more choices is always better. Sometimes choices can be better. Sometimes they can be worse. What if they offered... what if you could buy the shrines piecemeal? It's like, hey, you want, we're gonna give you 50 shrines. You want to buy 50 more shrines that scatter around the world? $1 a piece.
That's okay, but you're also assuming that Breath of the Wild is not a fully featured game already. Nobody could argue.
If it had half the shrines it did now, it would still be a fully featured game.
Yeah, nobody's arguing that Breath of the Wild isn't already fully featured as it is, so I don't mind throwing them a few extra bucks for cool new things. Personally, I don't mind that. I never have minded that, though. You're talking to the same guy who doesn't mind paying $6 for Cloud and Smash because that's...
Yeah, you're right. We shouldn't be having this discussion.
That's a Big Mac and a drink that I will eat once, or I can enjoy that character forever. So yeah, we look at this differently.
Well, no, we don't. I mean, not entirely. Like, I'm fine with that kind of DLC. Adding new characters, new stages. That stuff doesn't change anything about how the game played previously. It changes nothing. It's just adding more content. Some of this stuff does. And that's where I don't like.
Only two of these do of the 5 options.
It doesn't matter what percentage of it affects the game. It still
true,
does.
But here's the thing: this is already better than I was assuming. When I first saw this DLC introduced, they laid out exactly we're going to get a new map mode, we're going to get a hard mode, we're going to get the trial, and maybe a few things here. I forget exactly how they put it initially. It didn't look great. Everybody knew immediately. The reason they packaged these together is because everybody wants the second DLC. Nintendo themselves knows that these aren't as important as what's coming later. This is sort of a stopgap, so it's not like 6 or 9 months until we get the big DLC. This is keeping in people's minds, and I'm not saying it's a good thing. That's, again, it's a decision you have to make for yourself. It probably would be better to get these as updates, as look, at least the visuals, the optics would look better as far as what people assume about it. But for me personally, no, this is not enough for me to get it right away. I'm still waiting for them to detail Pack 2 so I can see what the story DLC is like, and likely buy that because it's more story and more actual gameplay, which is what I'm interested in. Because I've already beaten it, it's not as important to me. But if I hadn't beaten it already, if I was coming into this new, then this DLC is a little bit more attractive to get now rather than wait till later.
Yeah, and I mean, straight up, whether it is or isn't, I bought into the DLC pack knowing exactly what I was getting, more or less. I knew the stuff in the first DLC pack might not be as of much use to me after having finished the game, but I bought into that knowing that I want to get in on this story DLC. Yeah, it could $20 be too much? Maybe. Is it wrong of Nintendo to fold the price of Pack 1 into Pack 2 because they know most people wouldn't buy Pack 1? Maybe. But it's that standard business. Nintendo's a company.
Let's get your opinion on that then. Let's stop saying it's standard business, because businesses always do things just to what's best for their shareholders. Like, that doesn't matter. What do you think personally of that though? Like, do you think they should or shouldn't have?
What specifically? Should
group both DLC packs together without divulging what is in Pack 2, for instance, already, making you buy both if you want either?
I mean, I guess I don't. I mean, I think they should have it because it makes business sense. I mean, I don't really care. I don't mind.
Why do you argue on behalf of the businesses?
Because
I look on behalf of consumers.
Because I don't. I look at it from a realistic standpoint. I don't think that everything has to be done for the consumer every time. I don't think the consumer is always right. I'm sorry, I don't. I don't think everyone should be done for the benefit of the consumer. I mean, at the end of the day, the whole
you would
goal
make a
is
great
to make
CEO.
Money. But I'm not saying that you should go out of your way to screw people. But at the same time,
that's kind of what I mean. That's a little bit what they're doing here.
At the end of the day, the main directive of business is to make money, not to be the consumer's friend.
I'm not concerned with
period.
Nintendo's objective. I really could not care less that their objective is to make money. There's ways to do it in ways that don't annoy consumers or me specifically. I've rarely had issues with how Nintendo's handled stuff before, but this one I don't know. This one feels shady. It doesn't feel right to me.
I mean, then I guess we'll just have to agree to disagree. This doesn't feel shady to me. I mean,
but you said shady earlier though.
That aspect of the specific, folding the price of one. Right. I don't think it's actually shady. That's just straight up business. I mean, is it shady? No, I don't know. I think it's up to people to decide what things mean to them, what they value to them. Is it worth $20 to you? No, then don't buy it. If it is, yes, then buy it. I mean, I think giving the consumer a choice is better than not giving the consumer a choice.
I disagree with that, because then people who play through the game without being able to make that choice, for instance, if someone buys a $60 game and thinks they're getting an inferior value because they don't want to spend $20 more to make it the definitive version, they are probably having a lesser experience because they're always going to be wondering, should I have shelled out for that DLC pack? Whereas if they were ignorant of it before, that wouldn't have been a question in their mind.
Okay, that's a fair point, but at the same time, why shouldn't a company be free to continue to monetize a game if they want to?
I'm not arguing they're not free to. They're free to do whatever they want. If they want to charge piecemeal for every freaking shrine in the game, they can go nuts. That doesn't mean I'm going to be okay with that.
And I understand, I just feel like them charging piecemeal for every shrine in the game is way far off from what they're actually doing, which is charging $20 for a few cool new features that mean more to people who are playing.
But you just said they're free to do whatever they want, and I was giving you an example of why they are, but they shouldn't.
Right, but I feel like they've done a pretty good job reining themselves in compared to some other companies we could be talking about. I don't know, I don't see as much. I see what you're saying, and I'm not saying that you're wrong, but I don't have as much of a base problem with the idea of DLC as you do, and I think that's okay. Like, that's a point of dissension.
I don't have a problem with base DLC. I have a problem as it applies to story-based games. Like, I think they should
and we
exist
disagree there.
As supplementary to the main game in its own mode. That's fine. Like, even the Prince of Persia, this is years ago now, the Prince of Persia remake, when they added the ending, if you will, that you had to pay extra for, I was fine with that because that existed outside the main game. I felt I had enough value from the core game originally. That was legitimately just more content that existed outside of what you already played. This doesn't, though. This is different because this does influence the basic game, even if not that much. I feel like some of this stuff is stuff that should just be there or should be provided for free.
Yeah, I see. I do see the difference the line you're drawing, and the difference between kinds of DLC. And I see what you're saying, and I think you have some salient points. I just am less bothered by the functionality they're adding to the game. I'm less prepared to say that it should or should not be free. I think if I was a fly on the wall and had an eye into the development process, I could make a call like that. But I don't, I'm not as comfortable saying something should or should not be free.
Well, I mean, using that though, we're always lacking inside information. It applies to everything. If we always use that logic, we can't argue anything.
Well, looking at this list right now, I can already tell you I think Trial of the Sword should not be free. That seems like something new that they're building, at least to some degree. Hero's Path, maybe. Hard mode, yeah, maybe, but stuff like the travel medallion and more armor, that's stuff they have to actively design from the ground up. I don't think most of this stuff, I don't think it's such a problem to ask money for the majority of this stuff. I mean, in a game that it's already so stuffed full of content, I think that's an unrealistic expectation to have. I don't think they shouldn't create new content if it'll sell. I mean, if it's new stuff to enjoy, this stuff can't be created for free. It can't be.
I don't know if that's the optimal word here. It's a cave of trials, essentially.
Then you don't spend the $20, and that's cool. No one's going to begrudge you that.
I won't, but now, again, it invites a question of, do I need to get the optimal experience for this game? I mean, it's like going to a movie and being reminded of you can have a better version of it if you spend a few dollars at some point during it and add new scenes to the movie. That might change the context of later scenes.
I don't see that as the same thing. I don't think that's the same.
We view games differently then.
We do.
I feel like a story-based game, like, it should be treated as its own thing.
Ooh, we got an example for how your view on movies works. How do you feel about the extended editions of Lord of the Rings?
Well, I don't like Lord of the Rings in general. So.
Okay, then an extended version of anything.
In general, I'm not a huge fan of extended editions or director's cuts.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this ties into your whole idea of multimedia. So that's
not. I mean, not entirely. I mean, I don't have problems with those existing like I do with this.
Okay. I mean, again, we definitely do look at games differently, and I think we've come to that conclusion in several different ways. But that's what makes these conversations so interesting.
I like my games to be immersive. I don't like it when they introduce elements that exist outside the game and have that change it, and have to ask yourself throughout the game if you don't have the optimal version of it and need to pay more money outside of it to get the optimal version, or maybe that would compromise the experience. Maybe it's better without the DLC. You don't know. There's no way to know until you buy the DLC.
I didn't ask myself that question once while playing Breath of the Wild.
Because you couldn't. Because
but I
had
wouldn't
no
have.
choice.
Either way, I don't care. Like, this matters to you, or it seems like it has the potential to ruin your experience way more than it would ruin mine. And I think maybe the difference here...
No. By the very fact we have to discuss this, it makes it sound like a bigger issue than it is. I'm just principally opposed to the way Nintendo's handling DLC for this game in general. I'm fine with, so far at least. Except for hard mode, that's fine. The rest of the stuff feels like it should be updates. It's like, for instance, the language pack they just added to the game. Great, that makes sense. But if it had been part of the DLC, you'd probably be defending that too. It's like, oh yeah, sure, you should have to pay to have access to the other languages.
I wouldn't have minded, but I think it's awesome that we're offering for free, and I think Nintendo deserves props for that.
Right, and it'd be more awesome to offer the rest of this for free too.
But that's not realistic, and I don't think it's fair.
Why isn't that realistic? Did they not make enough money off this? Are they not solvent as a company?
Because stuff doesn't just get created out of thin air for no money and no time.
Then explain Splatoon. They could use the exact same argument
that was their chosen business model for that game, and it's also a different kind of content.
Yeah, and that could have been the chosen business model for Zelda
Zelda's
too.
a single-player game. Splatoon's
it could
multiplayer.
Have been. Of course, it could have been.
I completely disagree. I don't think.
You're saying Nintendo couldn't afford to
I'm not saying they
couldn't.
No, I'm not saying they couldn't afford.
That is what you're saying.
I didn't say they can't afford it. I'm saying, why should they have to if people will buy it? If people are going to...
people will buy Splatoon DLC.
Okay.
People bought Mario Kart DLC.
Yeah, okay, and and they're doing a one-time $20 charge for Zelda DLC. Big deal to me. I don't see why that is such a problem.
Because people don't have infinite money.
So you're arguing that it's incumbent upon Nintendo to police people's money for them by not asking for more of it, is what you're saying.
It's incumbent on Nintendo not to introduce these weird issues. Focus on the Zelda, focus on the standalone separate DLC. The game already has good enough reviews as is. You don't need to add more to it.
Then we just have a very high level disagreement about how DLC should be approached. And I'm not saying that yours isn't valid. I just disagree with it.
So would you buy this DLC pack by itself if it were $20?
It is $20. I'm confused.
No,
by itself, without separate DLC pack 2.
If DLC pack 1 by itself, God no.
But we don't know what DLC pack 2 is yet. So At this point, you are paying $20 for DLC pack 1.
Yeah, because I would never pay $20 if I only knew DLC pack 1 was coming. I would never have spent $20 on that. I'm doing it because I know I'm going to want the story content for DLC pack 2, and I would pay $20 for that.
Mm-hmm. And in my position, unless you need me to do a video on this, I am not going to buy the DLC until I learn more about DLC Pack 2, because that's my decision. I was like, I've beaten it. I don't feel like this is enough to add to it unless, but once I get DLC Pack 2, hey, I'll check out the trial as well. Why not? Go back to that. And that's probably the only thing I'd go back to, honestly, out of all this, just for that extra content. But as of right now, no, this is not worth it for me to buy this extra, for this DLC Pack 1. To get the entire package.
Yeah, I mean, if they had asked me to spend $20 on content, if they had said, okay, this is what we have right now, there may or may not be more coming, but $20, no way. I spent $20 because I knew I was getting this first wave of content that might not mean as much to me, as well as a second wave of content that does mean a lot to me, and that was okay to me.
Well, we don't know that yet.
You're right.
I mean, we think it means
but
a lot.
But I also bought into it on good faith. If I end up being disappointed, and I admit that.
Sure.
I admit that if I end up being disappointed by this second DLC pack, it's on me. I shouldn't have bought into it early, and I should have waited. But I have faith that because I love the rest of this game.
That kind of raises another point. Do you don't think it's kind of like taking advantage of people then a little bit? People who don't have the willpower to resist?
I don't think it's...
I mean, it kind of does, but, I mean... That's what gambling does.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
yeah, and I don't associate Nintendo with gambling.
Well, maybe.
Normally.
I mean, there's also kind of, I mean, we're talking about, in Ash's case, he was talking about buying into this one because he's going on faith. That's a lot of, honestly, season passes anymore, where you get a vague idea of what you're going to get, but you have no idea what the quality is going to be. But you want to get the season pass now. That's what they're offering because it's cheaper than buying it piecemeal. Now, Nintendo's not giving you the option for piecemeal in this case, but it's still. But they also gave us an idea of exactly what we're getting with that $20. Not the exact details, but at least an idea, which makes it, in my opinion, better than most of the season passes that get put out there.
That's not a high bar.
No, it's not. But the gaming industry has a lot of issues when it comes to value and.
Yeah, and I don't want to see Nintendo go down that path. I guess that's more.
And and I hear you, and I will say, and if you go back and listen to our discussion about when they announced the DLC, I'll still stand by this. I think the timing about how they handled this announcement was all off.
Oh, it was
terrible.
Awful.
I don't mind that they're doing the DLC, but I said this back then, and I'll say it now. They should have waited until the game was out for a few weeks to announce the DLC. Like, the fact that they announced it weeks in advance of the game's release just felt very money grubby to me, and I still stand by that. I think the timing was all off, but I don't mind that they're offering it. I really don't.
I mean, I don't see what's wrong with the timing if you think this whole thing's okay anyway.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to be like, well, what's wrong with the timing? Yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother discussion, though, which do we really want to get into that now?
I love how when you guys get into it, you find one little thing.
I shouldn't have even said that.
And it's not just, it's both of you, too. It's not just one, it's both of you. Like, that one thing is a little off, so I got a hard
forget I said that about the time, then.
No, I mean, at least we have an idea of what we're getting into. It's not available yet. We actually have no idea when it's actually coming out still. That's completely up in the air. But, yeah. But, hey, at least we know what it is. You have time to figure out if it's worth it to you or not. And I think that's really what it comes down to.
I wish I could principally only buy the second pack just so I can send a message to Nintendo, but no, I have to buy freaking pack 1. I actually already have.
Yeah, exactly.
Me too. I mean, this whole conversation. Yeah.
The only one
if I could exist outside of my current
Right.
situation, I wish I could send that message to Nintendo that selling stuff that I feel like should be added as part of an update is not cool, and I only want the story-based stuff.
And I've seen a lot of people agree with you, Andre, that it's not, they don't like this idea of adding to it and sort of disrupting the flow of what the game's built into and having those worries. So I completely get you. I'm not arguing with you that you're wrong or anything like that at all, but it's also one of those things where maybe because I have gotten the complete story up to this point, I'm good. I feel maybe I'm privileged in that way, but because I already played it, it's like, okay, I got my experience. I can decide whether or not I come back to it and add more to it, and maybe that's why I'm a little more lenient to you, than you. But it also,
well, I argue from a point of principle. Like for me, I'm already beat the game too. I'm not like going to replay it anytime soon, if ever. I'm arguing from a point of principle. Even if the content did interest me, I would have the exact same arguments.
That's pretty much all I could. I was like, all right.
Hey,
well,
man of principle, man of the people.
Nice.
You know I am. I'm the guy who opts out of the TSA every time. So, all right. Well, I think that about wraps up our Zelda discussion. Hopefully,
Zelda debate.
Yeah, Zelda
really
debate more than anything. Like, here's what the DLC is. Now we're gonna kill each other over it.
Andre's wrong.
Well, now we're definitely ending it. So thanks for watching, guys. If you liked our discussion, make sure and like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. You can find links to them in the description below. As you go, we keep updated and everything we post. And of course, stay tuned to GameXplain for lots more on the Zelda DLC at some point, and other things gaming as well. Catch you later. Bye.